Hey out there. In this episode 16, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. I don't have a specific layout, but doing the heartbreak part one and heartache part two, it made me think about some things that I've gone through in my life, and one of those things specifically that I'd like to discuss is building walls. I've brought this up in the past, and I've of course said that you've got to be careful about building walls for a number of reasons. Specifically, when it comes to relationships and heartache and finding and enjoying love. And one of the things that I want to talk about that is in regards to building walls, right? Because when people get hurt and when your emotions get hurt, especially if you've been in a relationship with someone that you just adored, and for some form or fashion, or reason or another, that relationship ended and not on your terms. So, being in a relationship like that and you've put your heart out there and then you end up, you know, broken up or feeling rejected and things like that, it's a very difficult thing to go through. And of course, naturally, you want to build a wall. You want to be able to kind of separate yourself. So, in the future, in the event that you do find yourself in a relationship, that you're able to not necessarily get hurt as bad as you did in the previous relationship because, of course, you've built this wall. And that's certainly natural. But what I do want to say is that in my experience, unfortunately, I've had to undo a lot of the things that I've done to myself to protect myself over my life period. And it's made me realize that I missed out on a lot of things, specifically appreciating love and relationships. Because no matter who you are and no matter what you think, you will find love and you will find someone who loves you back. Um, it might seem like that would never happen, and it might seem that in the relationship that you were just in or have recently been in or were in the past, and you got your heart broke, you think that you might never meet another person like that. And first off, I can tell you that there are plenty of people out there that you're going to meet and that you're going to like and most likely fall in love with. But what happens if over time you've built this wall, this really big wall, and you end up finding someone that you really love and someone who really loves you back? I think you're going to find it difficult to really appreciate and be in that moment of love, in those moments of love, because you end up kind of, building this wall and separating yourself from the relationship. And while you are close to that person and while you feel that you're close in your relationship, there's still a part of you that is built this wall and separated you to where you can't open-heartedly enjoy it or appreciate it. And that get that's a I don't know, that's a sad thing. Certainly because I've gone through it a lot in my life, and I found that I wasn't my best in some relationships that at the time I really wanted to, but I couldn't. And it makes it more difficult as you get older and let's say you get married or you find the person that you want to marry, and you might find yourself bickering over small things, and those small things could just be coming from things that you've felt and experienced in past relationships, and you're just kind of building this wall and trying to separate yourself from the person that you you are wholeheartedly in love with, and it's somebody that you would possibly want to spend the rest of your life with. But it can make that relationship very difficult because that other person might have not gone through the things that you've gone through. Um, and it can also be very difficult for them to understand what you've been through, especially when they haven't been through it. So, when you find yourself, or if you find yourself in a relationship that you're wholeheartedly in love with, but you're still kind of create this barrier, you'll find that your partner might say, I feel like I'm giving all the love that I can for you, and I don't feel like I'm getting it reciprocated back. And while you might feel that you are, that might could just be because of the amount of comfort that you feel in providing love because you've put out love in the past and you've gotten hurt, so you kinda dial back the amount of love that you dish out. And like I said, it's unfortunate because you could be missing out on a really big part of your relationship. You could also be saving your relationship, um, if you start to make these changes, if you find that you're in a relationship now. And so one of my big things about doing all of this is that people can hopefully understand and realize how great life is and how wonderful it can be and how great it can be to experience it minute by minute and day by day. And I also feel that way when it comes to relationships because love is a great thing. And if you don't believe in love, well, then being openly emotional with somebody is a great thing because of what you both get to experience on your own. And in my life and my relationships and my experiences, I look back and I realize how much time and how much experience and love that I wasn't able to be a part of because of this wall that I built up. And rightfully so, I didn't I there wasn't anybody that I could turn to who had been through the things that I had been. My parents, weren't somebody that I could turn to. While they, of course, were sympathetic with my feelings and the breakups and the heartache that I had gone through, they couldn't really find a way to, help me, I guess would be the right thing to say. Because had I known that putting up such a big wall would be something that I would eventually have to tear down in my life and tear down to make my relationships work. And I lost a lot of relationships because while I felt like, I was giving everything I had, I was up to the point to where I was comfortable. Um, one in another episode, one of the first episodes, one of the things that I mentioned was that one of my favorite movies is Meet Joe Black, and there's a part in the movie at the very beginning where um, Bill Parrish, who was played by um, Anthony Hopkins. Sorry, it took me a minute to remember his name. Anthony Hopkins, and if you haven't seen the movie, it's him as a father, and he's got two daughters, two older daughters, and one of them, Susan, his daughter, who was played by Claire Forlani, um, ends up meeting um, Brad Pitt, who in the movie is Joe Black. So, but in the beginning, in their helicopter going into the city, it's about a 5-minute conversation, and I love it, just because of the way that he kind of explains love and what he felt and things like that. But one of the things that he said that really struck a chord with me was, he's talking to his daughter, and his daughter's in a relationship with one of the people who work for him, and he's asking, does she love him? And she candidly says yes. And, he digs a little bit deeper. Like I said, it's about a 5-minute conversation. And, but towards the end, he says, you've got to fall head over heels. Um, you got to love someone like crazy who will love you the same way back. Because if you haven't loved, you haven't lived. I'm paraphrasing, but, that struck a chord with me because I'm fairly, an emotional or passionate person, when it comes to my feelings, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about life and love and things like that. And I wish the same thing for you. And if you are already there, then to me that just made sense. If you haven't loved, you haven't lived, because there's something about love, and because it comes in many different facets, and of course, there's many different layers. That love doesn't mean just one thing. It's the experience of love. It's the part of being in love and experiencing love, because a lot of it is emotions, a lot of it is reciprocation, a lot of it also really comes down to you um, expressing gratitude for someone and they expressing that same gratitude in return. And it does, of course, good things for your psyche and your internal feelings and thoughts, because if you've gone throughout life a lot like I have, not thinking that I was worthy of love or relationship. It's an amazing thing to put that feeling out there and get that feeling back in return because I never thought I would. And you'll, of course, experience this many different times in your life. It doesn't mean, when you do find someone that you do open up and you've got this reciprocating type of relationship, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily the person you're going to marry or the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. But it's all about that experience in general. So that's one reason that I say that. It's all about that experience in general. It's all about feeling love. It's about getting that love back and those emotions back. And, it's about feeling that part in your life. And if that relationship unfortunately comes to an end, whether it be on your terms or on their terms, a lot of it really comes down to that experience in itself. Being able to have those feelings is incredible. Um, it's, a lot of, there are children who grow up who, if you were, let's say, hurt as a kid, maybe you fell off your bike or your skateboard, you just happened to be running down the driveway and you fell, and your parents ran out and scooped you up and hugged you and told you it was going to be okay and, kissed your wounds and things like that. That's love, right? And if you can think of a time in your life where you felt something, where somebody just emotionally cared for you, and imagine experiencing that many different times throughout your life. It is an amazing thing, and building up a wall around yourself, a very tall and thick wall, can make that experience and those small moments maybe not register with you because of the wall and the separation that you've kind of put yourself in. So I I know that putting up a wall and separating yourself was really is all about trying to protect yourself, but you also have to try to recognize the moments where you shouldn't have that wall up or not be as tall because it can be amazing when you let that down and you get what you get in return. So that's kind of the first part that I wanted to talk about. This was putting up walls and not being able to experience emotions um, in your life because of the wall that you put up. The second part to that is about building walls is the amount of time that it takes you to kind of undo those walls. And I've touched on this a little bit already, but let's say that you are in a relationship and you do want to give more and the person that you're with is looking for more. It can be very difficult to do that, right? Because what happens is that you end up in an argument. Let's say that because I've certainly been in relationships where the person said, I feel like I'm giving you all of this, all of this love and all these emotions, and you're not giving me anything back. And at the time, I would think, I, you know, I don't know why you would say that. I'm being as emotional and open as I can be. And they would say, well, it's not enough. Well, then, that kind of puts you in a place where you're feeling bad about yourself. And then it makes you angry because you're like, well, why is this person judging me and saying that my love is not good enough when I feel like I'm putting as much love out there as I can? That can be a difficult thing to go through. And I've gone through it so many times that it's, it's rewarding when you can recognize that your wall is too tall and that you need to kind of break it down because you will miss out on things in life and that's not what I want for you, any of you or anybody. I it's Life is amazing. Emotions and experiencing with other people are amazing. um there were a lot of times where I would be in an argument with someone and they would start crying and they couldn't understand why I didn't have the same emotional feeling. And of course, it made our relationship worse because they thought that I didn't care about them, or they thought that I wasn't emotional enough to be in a relationship, or I didn't have feelings the way that they had for me, when in fact I did, if not more. But I had such a wall that in some cases I would think that it was silly that they were crying when they had valid reasons. But at the time, I just felt like it was silly. And I felt like if I showed the same emotions that they were showing, that it was going to make me weak and it was gonna make me vulnerable, and that would be something that they would use against me later on. Because at least for me, I would think, "Okay, well, if I show emotions and I show weakness or I show tears or what have you, and if they see that even just once, they'll remember that I have that capability, and I would be so afraid that in the future they would use that against me." And so I would just get more frustrated and get more angry because I thought that what they were asking for was just being ridiculous. And unfortunately, it wasn't. And unfortunately, I would realize that at a much later time and realize that I had ruined a very good thing. And so it's I don't want that for you. The the amount of time it took me, and even today I still have walls, but the amount of time and the years that it took me to get more comfortable with opening up, I just realized how much I lost, and I realized how many people I hurt. And especially going through what I went through, I never wanted to hurt anybody. I never wanted anybody to feel unloved or unwanted in a relationship, but because of the walls that I had put up, it had just ruined so many things. And even today, there are things that are brought to my attention that I do, um, that I don't realize that I'm doing, all because of the walls that I've put up. And it just, then and because of this, it then creates a strain on your relationship. If you're with someone who truly loves you, they of course are going to work with you through this if they're aware of what's going on. It's okay to say, listen, I understand that you want me to show more emotions, but I can't. And I can't because I've been hurt in the past. And that's something that most everybody can understand because at some point in time in their life, they've been hurt, whether it been through a boyfriend or girlfriend, or whether it be through a best friend. They know what hurt is. And everybody at some point in their life has built up walls. So it's not like you're going to tell them something that they don't already know that exists in humans. And they're going to be sympathetic because there's somebody who, of course, is out there asking for more emotions from you. And so if you could say, well, just letting them know, I've the things that I've been, and you don't have to be specific, but you can at least say that this is something that I've gone through in the past, and this is why I can't, you know, um, be as outwardly emotional as you are because this is a wall, this is a shield that I've built up. But I want you to know that I do love you and I do care for you and I want to be there for you and I want to give you what you're asking for. So let's try to figure out a way to do that. And of course, 9 times out of 10, they're going to wanna be there with you and go through it with you. And it's I know that it's such a hard thing to say, especially if you're someone who's been so hurt so recently, and you have put your emotions out there, and you have been as open as I've talked about, and yet you've still been hurt. If that's the case, you also have to think about the relationship that you're in, and if that person that you're sharing your emotions with and your life with, and they aren't returning those same feelings, you also have to realize, all right, or have they gone through something? If they haven't, if this is something you've talked about, maybe they're not the right person for you. If the last thing you want to do is try to express yourself emotionally and ask for more on an emotional basis from someone who isn't really the right person for you, because that will make your recovery even worse, because now not only have you opened up yourself, you're now asking for more help or more emotions or to be more involved in your relationship, and they just aren't really doing it, and they don't really show that they want to do it. There's one thing for somebody to talk to you like they have to me and say they want me to open up. um, it meant something because I did love this person and I did want to open up. But it's different if you're expressing your feelings to someone and saying, I'd like more of our relationship. I'd like for you to be more open and honest with me. And be more in the moment and emotional with me, and they show no interest, then that's somebody who is not worthy of your time and your love, because in the end, it's only going to make you build a bigger wall. It's only going to make you feel more sad and more depressed because the relationship didn't work out. And of course, that's not where we want to be. I just I want everybody to experience life and love and emotions and feelings. And I know that sounds corny to say, but at its core being, if you think about life, that's really what it comes down to. It doesn't come down to the amount of money that you've made. It doesn't come down to the amount of things that you've bought. It doesn't matter the amount of things that you've done. It really comes down to you and yourself and your emotions. If you think about 50 years from now, if you're, or 80 years from now, if you're in the hospital on your deathbed, are you thinking about all the time that you spent making all this money and buying all these things? Or do you think that you're thinking about all of the events that you've been through in your life and all of the feelings that you've had and all of the experiences that you've had with other people? I think that that's where, at least for me, that's what I would reflect on. And I think that that's so important that that's one of the reasons why I continue to do this, because I just want you to be able to experience life. And in your final moments, for whatever reason and circumstances they may be, that you can think back and realize that I didn't waste my or a lot of years trying to undo things that I had done to make myself feel safe. But think about all of the years that you did all of these amazing things and these things that you went through and the loves that you felt. It is truly amazing. Um, and it doesn't even certainly have to be so dramatic by saying on your deathbed, but it could be, 5 years from now or 1 year from now. But being able to look back and just think about what you've really done and what you've really experienced, because that's what makes you. And if you think about it, if you're happier and you're more in tune with yourself and your emotions, you're able to experience life so much better than somebody who isn't, because you're really in tune with what's going around you, what's going around in your body and in your mind and in the environment that you're in. And that's a true, nugget in not in life that you get to save and reflect on. Um, I wish I had more time. I'm already at 23 minutes, but maybe I'll pick up in another episode talking about some of the key moments in my life that I even think about today. I mean, there are moments that I can remember from when I was 7 years old, 6 and 7 years old, that I think about, and then things that happened when I was 15 and 18 and 20 and 25 and 30 and 35 and 40, and it's just being able to. I've got these wonderful moments in life, and they make me happy. And I hope that's what I hope for you. I hope that for anybody who's out there who is sad and depressed and just doesn't think that life gets any better, it does. And the longer that you live and the more experiences that you get to have, the more you get to look back on and you get to just appreciate the joy of what you've been through. And while it might not seem that big of a deal in the moment, thinking back on it 5 and 10 years from now, it might make you smile on a day that you weren't having a good day. Um, yeah, that's what I hope. Well, thank you for listening. I hope it was helpful. Like I said, if there's ever any topic you want me to talk about or go into more detail or specific scenarios, please send me an email at lifeliveseries@gmail.com. I also recently, I said I wasn't going to do this, but I thought it might be easier for some people. Um, I've put a podcast of these recordings that are here on YouTube out as well. They're in iTunes and they're certainly free. So if that's easier for you to maybe even listen to in certain times, then they're certainly out there as well. So I appreciate you listening and thank you for your time. Take care of yourself. Bye.